this, let's bring in Republican Senator from Ohio, Rob Portman. He is a surrogate for both the Loeffler and Perdue campaigns and is a member of the Senate Committees on Homeland Security, Foreign Relations, and Finance. Senator, thanks for spending some time with us this evening.
You bet, John. Thanks for having me on.
I want to point to the early voting that's already taken place in Georgia. The numbers are pretty astounding. More than 3 million people have already voted, 928,000 of them and change in person. The others, by mail. The others are in person. A lot of those votes, a large percentage of votes coming in from the areas right around Atlanta, which tend to vote heavily Democratic. How concerned are you that the Democrats start out with an edge already in this race?
Well, we always do better on Election Day, and that was true in the general election campaign, also in the last runoff in Georgia. So I feel pretty good. I was down there yesterday. I had the opportunity to meet with a bunch of volunteers and talk to Georgians who had yet to make their mind up. And I will tell you, it's all the buzz. It's everybody's talking about. You can't turn on the TV set, by the way, without seeing an ad for one candidate or another. But look, we're not going to do as well in early voting. We never do, but we do really well on Election Day. And that's how David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler both got into this runoff. In fact, David Perdue, as you know, won by 2 points. And when you add the Libertarian to the mix, who also got 2 points, in effect, he won by 3 or 4 points the first time. So my hope is that on Election Day, people show up. That's sometimes a challenge, as you know, during a runoff, but not this time because everybody knows it's coming on January 5th.
Yeah, let's take a look at the Real Clear Politics average of the polls. This is the week of December 14th to the 27th. In both races, the Democrats led, according to the polling. John Ossoff, 49.3% to David Perdue's 48.5%, and Raphael Warnock, 49.8% to Kelly Loeffler's 48%. Again, you're hoping that Republicans are going to come to the polls and put the lie to those numbers when Democrats hold the lead, at least according to the polling.
Yeah, well, it's a very, very slight lead. And as you just heard from David Perdue, he was down 5 points in the poll and ended up winning by 2 points. So the polls have been off, let's face it, in just about every state and certainly in the national polling. But what I saw down there was a lot of enthusiasm, and for good reason. I mean, this is the most consequential Senate election in our lifetimes. I mean, you have to say that the candidates that we have are both business people who are doing a great job in the Senate, and that's important. But it's even more important than that we win these, because this is about the direction of the country. This will determine who gets the majority in the Senate. And if the Democrats win both these races, then they have the White House, the House, and the Senate. And the checks and balances that most Americans want to see just won't be there. And we are going to have the higher taxes and more regulations and fewer jobs and weaker military and court packing and all the other stuff that they're talking about. So this is a big election, and I think people get that in Georgia.
There is a big controversy underway, obviously, about the election results from November, as well as the polling that's going to take place on Tuesday. The president has complained that he didn't get a fair shot in Georgia. The candidates, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, say they're doing everything they can to make sure it's a fair election. Here are their thoughts.
We're working hard to make sure that this is a fair, trusted election. We have 8,000 poll watchers. Georgians are fired up to vote, and we've seen that in early voting. 3 million votes, shattering records for previous runoffs. We are going to see a record turnout for this runoff election.
We've doubled the number of poll workers. We've got cameras and people watching all the drop boxes. We're doing everything we can on the absentee ballots and on Election Day counting to make sure that what happened in November didn't happen.
Are you at all concerned about the integrity of this coming Tuesday?
I think it'll be very closely watched, as they just said. I was down there a few weeks ago also and had the opportunity to meet with some of those poll watchers who are going to be involved. And I will just tell you, I think both sides are going to be carefully watching. And to those Republicans who are concerned that it might not be a fair election, the best way to remedy that, one, is to vote to be sure that we don't lose control of the Senate. But second, to understand that this is going to be different, is there'll be a lot of people watching, as there should be, and the integrity of the election is so incredibly important. So my hope is you're going to see a big turnout, and I think you're going to. It's not a typical runoff. You know, who normally shows up in January 5th to vote? People sometimes, tend not to show up on a runoff. It's not going to happen this time. Everybody knows it's coming, and people are fired up because they know how important this election is for the future of the country.
As you well know, one of the big issues really all across the country right now, but it's impacting these Georgia races, is the size of the stimulus checks that are to come. Both Senators Loeffler and Perdue have said that they would like to see the $2,000 checks that have not, as you know, passed the Senate. Mitch McConnell had some thoughts about that. Listen.
Our colleagues who purport to be the champions of vulnerable Americans now say that what struggling people really need is for Congress to stop focusing on targeted relief for them specifically and to instead send thousands of dollars to people who don't need the help. Socialism for rich people is a terrible way to help the American families that are actually struggling.
He has also blamed Nancy Pelosi for bottlenecking COVID relief back before the election. Your thoughts?
Well, that's absolutely true. And I will say David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler were among the people who said we've got to continue to provide relief to the American people. Remember, the CARES Act was passed back in March, and then they fought to ensure we could have another package, which included checks, but also help for unemployment, help for small businesses, help for our health care providers. In fact, there were 2 votes on the Senate floor on bills that looked very much like the final bill that passed, where they were blocked by Democrats. And frankly, what was happening, John, as you know, is that Senate Democrats were deferring to Nancy Pelosi, who apparently didn't want to do anything before the election. So that's kind of how we got into this situation where we didn't have the relief soon enough. But it wasn't for lack of effort by David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. They were out there fighting for it hard. And I think you're absolutely right that the reason it didn't happen was that there was foot dragging in the House of Representatives by the Speaker. Now Speaker Pelosi says she's on board. That's great. These checks are arriving, by the way, the $600 checks, which for a family of 4 in Georgia is $2,400. People are already telling me here in Ohio they've got their checks. They're happy with it. They're also happy with the fact that if they're unemployed, that their unemployment wasn't cut off, which was what would have happened had Kelly and David and others of us not promoted a new COVID-19 package. So this is good news because it's going to help us get through this period between now and when the vaccines are readily available. That bridge is exactly what we just passed. It is targeted. It's going to really help American families and small businesses and our health care providers and help get kids back to school, too, which is really important.
That is very important. Senator Rob Portman, Republican of Ohio, thank you.